Hello, my data farm. Welcome to my channel. It's Henry, your favorite data engineer. Today, I'm glad to introduce to you that we are working on a full end-to-end project. This is mainly focused for beginners. This project has been something that people have been calling for, that I've put together to come up with this. We are working on a full end-to-end project, which is built based on a Medallion architecture for beginners. The reason why this is for beginners is because it helps you to build your career in data engineering, to understand how the principle of Medallion architecture is being implemented in a code environment, right? You are writing this using PySpark. We are focusing this tutorial based on PySpark. We're building the infrastructure from ground up, how to even open your browser and all that. We're going to treat that. We're going to look at that, and I'm going to show you the infrastructure project, right? What we are going to build out. This is going to exclude a lot of the principles because we want to take everyone along, and everyone should be able to understand and follow this project. You can add this to your project or to your CV as part of your project that you built. The code base to this project would be available in the description. You can go there. There'll be a link there. You go to the link and you'll be able to download the entire code base that we used for this project. I'm very excited for this project because it's going to uplift and put everyone on that level of beginning their career in data engineering. And follow along, and it's being your favorite data engineer. And I'm going to make this very simple English, and everybody is going to understand it, because I'm going to use simple life scenarios to explain complex events or complex concepts in data engineering. And I'm very glad that you are going to follow me along. Subscribe, follow, and let's begin with this tutorial. Right. All right. Yes, welcome. Great. I'm super excited for us to start this project because it's been something people have been asking for. And today we're going to work on this project end to end, from basic to the level that we need to get to, right? But this is good for beginners who want to start their career in data engineering, or even data analysts who already know how to use SQL, know how to use some SQL, or who want to advance and move to the next level. This is very good for you because you'll be able to understand how to implement the Medallion architecture using the code base, right? And you'll be able to learn PySpark. At least you'll be able to understand some of it. I release PySpark videos on my YouTube channel. So with this, we're going to focus on building this architecture. Right, we're going to focus on building this architecture. This is a bakery sales architectural project, right? And I will explain the architecture, what it does, or how we're going to build this, and how the entire process is going to be like. I'm going to explain each stage as well, so that you understand what we mean by this whole architecture. So let's just start with that. So first of all, we know that before any data comes into a database, it's developed from systems, right? Systems from either apps or platforms that require that users make use of this. You are making purchases, you are making sales, they are collecting some data from external parties and so on. Those are the various data sources. But for this project, we're going to use two data sources. That's going to be, we're going to use CSV and JSON, right? And those are going to be the data sources for us. And this CSV and JSON, we're going to create them ourselves. These are data that we are going to create them ourselves, so that we can use it to build this whole architecture, right? And that will be the source of data for us. So with that logic of data coming from apps and so on, or coming from files that we need, our CSV and JSON is going to be our data source. And with this, once data comes from a source, it can be database as well. If your company or your platform has database, either Postgres database, MySQL database, or OLAP, that OLTP databases. Those are going to be the sources, right? Those are going to be the sources that the data is going to come from. But in this tutorial, we're only going to use CSV and JSON, and we're going to build them ourselves. When these data sources come through, how the systems work is that ideally you work closely with someone who, the DevOps engineer, or you work closely with the database, whoever is responsible for the cloud architecture, right? Or solutions architect, right? You work hand in hand to implement some preliminary stages of this. But in this tutorial, we are going to implement everything ourselves, right? We're going to create everything ourselves. So with this, CSV will be our source. JSON will also be one of our data sources. Then we move this data. We are going to store the data in, ideally, it would be stored in, maybe if it's AWS, you can store it in Redshift, right? You can store it in Redshift, or you can store it in S3 buckets that flow into Redshift, right? But for our tutorial today, we're going to use Databricks volumes as our S3 source, right? That is going to be our S3, right? In this case. So that's going to be our S3 for that. And that's where we call that the data is coming through. That's where we call the ingestion, right? Ingestion. So we're pulling the data from these sources, and we are inserting, or we are putting it into a space that we can make use of, right? So it's just like you are injecting something, right? You pull the data from somewhere and you inject it into a new place or a particular place all the time. So it's called injection, right? Ingestion, right? So in this case, we're going to use Databricks volumes, right, as the first landing point of the data from wherever sources it comes from, right? So that is what we're going to use in this video. It's going to come from our S3, it's going to come from our JSON and CSV, and then we ingest it into a Databricks volume. Now, this is also we're going to use PySpark to do that, right? And we know it's a Python model or Python framework, right? So that's more of Python. We're going to use Python to do that, right? And we move the data in here. From here, now this is going to have the raw state of data. We're not going to do any changes. We're not going to make any editing. We're not going to clean any data in here. We're going to maintain the raw source structure, the raw state, the raw data. However, it came through from the data source. We'll maintain it as it is in this injection. We'll keep it that way. This is because in the event future changes or something happens in going forward, you can always come back to the source, and it will still be in the raw state that it was. That is one logic that you need to have as a data engineer. You need to always maintain the raw state of data that you have. I'm taking my time because I want everyone to understand how it's going to be implemented, so that in the event you implement this, you follow through and you finish the video, you should be able to do this and share your ideas, share your project, or share this project that you built on social media, on LinkedIn, X. You can share it on Facebook, wherever you share it. Kindly tag me anytime you're able to finish this project and implement it. Tag me and let me know. I'll be glad to make a comment and encourage you on it, right? And it's great if you are learning with a community or with someone, you learn much better, you share ideas. So kindly follow through and implement this project, share it. You will find my social media handles in the description of this video as well, where you can find my name and then you tag me on it, right? So with the injection state, it keeps the raw state of data, no cleaning, nothing. Then from here, and that is what we're going to use Databricks volumes for that in this scenario or in this project, the bakery sales architecture project for beginners. Great. From there, we are going to use PySpark to also move the data Python to move the data from this volume and store it in another state, right? We move it to another level, which is the bronze. And I already have a video to explain what the medallion architecture is. The medallion architecture simply means you're going to arrange it in processes, right? In states, right? Where every state has the reason why it's there. Bronze will just be the raw nature of it, right? Silver would be a clean way. Gold would be the refined one. And then that is what your stakeholders will make use of. For detailed understanding to what medallion architecture is, I have a video in my YouTube channel. Go and check it out. It would be great to have that understanding before we implement this whole. You come back to implement this whole architecture, this bakery sales architecture. It would be good for you to have that understanding or that initial understanding of medallion architecture, right? So we move this data from the volume into the bronze level. The bronze will also keep the raw state nature of the data that you pulled from the volume in here. And over here is where the data engineer normally makes use of his computations and coding and all that. Though over here, the data source, you also integrate some APIs and pull that in, right? But here is mainly where the work takes place, right? The complex codings take place. But with this project, you're going to understand how to do it, what to do, right? We're going to use simple English. You understand everything that we're going to implement here. I'll ensure to break it down, because when I started learning it, the jargons made my head roll. But you know, Henry is your favorite data engineer, and I'm going to get you to understand all these jargons. We're going to use simple English. We explain it, and you're going to be good at that, right? Good. Now, with bronze, it just keeps the raw state data. Silver is where you are going to clean the data. You're going to clean the data, take out states, that things that you do not need, right? At times, some data comes and then there are outliers. What are outliers? Outliers are just data that comes through maybe a row or line of data that should have the minimum requirement. Minimum requirement, like it should always have a date or it should always have a time. But this data, one way or the other, didn't have dates. So with that, you can separate it or group that data in another table, right? And then classify them as outliers. So we're going to do all that in the event where we find some data having that kind of outlier properties, right? So we're going to do all the cleaning in here in the silver. Then we have the gold, where we are going to have the refined state of the data. And in the gold, this is where you're going to have the final tables that are going to be consumed by your downstream. That is going to be the business analyst, the data analyst, your ML engineer, AI engineer, and so on. So as I said, you are the one of you are going to be the first point of contact with the data. So since you are the first point of contact with the data, you need to be data curious. You need to be very curious about the data, what it's telling you, so that whatever you do not impact or do not have a negative impact on your stakeholders, who are the data analysts, the ML engineer, AI engineer, and so on, right? Once you make a mistake in your pipeline or something, or if all other people who are depending on your pipeline or on your data will also have their results impacted in a negative way, that is the important thing you need to know. So you need to be very curious about data. You need to be very technically curious about the data. What is telling you, you need to put a lot of measures in place. But with this architecture, we're just going to look at something basic for you to kickstart, understand what we are building, or what data engineering is all about, or this project is going to help you. You can keep it in your CV, add it to your CV, add it, share it on social media, so that everyone know that yes, this is what you are learning and it's coming from Henry, so that people will also come and learn. So from the gold, then it moves to, that is where your BI tools are connected, your data analyst, and so on. And all this architecture, we're going to build it using Databricks free edition. Databricks free edition. That is where we're going to build this, and I'm going to walk you through how to create your account as well, so you don't have to worry at all. We're going to create that as well. Now, to move forward, let's look at what type of data or the tables we'll be creating for this architecture. That's the tables that will be coming from the source, right? What type of data are they going to be? The columns. What type of columns? What is going to be the data type, right? What is going to be the data type in those columns, for those columns specifically. So let's create this page, right? We have this page. To create a page, you can just click here and then add another page this way, right? So I already have one, so let me remove this page. Nice. So I have this raw page, and in this project we're going to have two tables. We're going to make use of two tables, and out of those two tables, other tables might come up. So let's just look at this, the source, the raw source of tables that will be coming through to the architecture. That will be the bronze tables. Let's look at them. So we click here. Let's create this table here, and let's expand this. And expand this. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we have two tables that we're going to create. The first one is the orders table, right? So let's merge this field. To merge the field, if you're using MacBook, you just select these two cells this way. You press your command key, you select this one, you come to here, you merge, and we have the orders. We have the orders table, right? This is what we have, and in the orders table there are columns that we will need. So we need the orders order ID, which the table should have an order ID, because of course if people make orders, it should capture which order ID is being generated, right? Then we have the customer ID. That's the customer that is placing the order. We need to know which customer is placing the order, right? Then we have the product, which product was placed, right? Which product was placed, and what's the category of the product. Then we have the quantity. Okay, let's insert more. Set below, insert. We have the quantity, we have the unit price, right? Then we have the order timestamp, right? What time was this order placed? Then we have the status of the order, right? So these are the columns that we would have, right? These are going to be the columns that we have. Now for every column, we need to tell the type of information is going to store. Is it going to store numbers? Is it going to store alphanumerics? Is it going to store some jargon words or something? Is it going to store only time? Is it going to store dates, or is it going to store date and time? So these are things that you emphasize. You tell the tables that I only want you to store this specific category or types of information in your row, right? That's what we call the data types, right? Data types. So something like order ID, we want it to be, it is going to be like alphanumeric, right? That's numbers and letters, hyphen and all that, right? So something like that, you can say it should be varchar, right? Varchar. The same way customer ID too, maybe you want it to varchar. again. Product can be string, right? That is only words, right? Product can be string. Then we have category can also be string. Category can also be string. Then we have quantity. Quantity, of course, can be big int, right? Big int. In Databricks, we have big int, right? Unit price can be float, because you can have float. Simply means it accepts decimals, 8.5, 2.2, and all that. Yeah. So float. Other timestamp should be timestamp. Should be timestamp. Status can be string. Yeah. So we have this. This is how the table for the orders would look like. And you can add more if you want, but for our scenario, this should be enough for us to build our architecture that we spoke about, right? To have this. So what we build here, what we have here, is simply talking about the data that is coming from here into the bronze, right? The data that's coming from here into the bronze. So we are describing the source have that structure already, so we're just pushing it in here, but we're describing that the data in here should look something like this, right? That's how the data would look like, so we know what we are dealing with. We have the orders, and we have another table which would be for customers, right? To that, you just select this table, Command C if it's MacBook, Control C if it's Windows, and then Control V if it's Windows, and Command V if it is MacBook. Then you can paste, right? And this will be your customers table, right? And in customers table, let's delete everything. You just hold down your command key or your control key, and then you delete. Click on delete, and that's it. So for customer, we have fields such as customer ID, right? Customer ID. Then we have name, and then we need the customer email. Also, we need the city the customer stays, the sign up date. Yeah, I think that is what we need. We can delete the 3 remaining, so you just go here, delete row, select, delete row, select, delete row. Now the customer ID, we also want it virtual. It will look virtual, right? Then we have the name should be string, email can be string. In fact, email can be virtual, right? City string, sign up date this way. So this is how these 2 tables are going to look. Let's bolding this. Yeah. So this is how these 2 tables are going to look, right? You're going to have this orders table and customers table, and out of these tables, that is where we're going to pull extra data from, right? That's where we're going to pull extra data from. Where we look at outliers, we might be able to get outliers, and if you go back to the architecture, you can get that. You can create those tables right from silver before pulling them into gold, right? So these are the 2 tables we're going to make use of for this project, right? We're not going to implement star schema, all the stuff here yet. In this particular video is to help you kickstart your data engineering understanding, right? To kickstart that understanding and give you that firm foundation that you can rely on and build on upon. And we're going to make use of Databricks free edition. And note, the code base for this project, the diagrams that we have here, and this drawing here, everything is going to be in a link will be added to the description. I have a link in the description. Go there, download it, and then make use of it, right? If you're able to execute this to the latter, come if you share it on social media, tag me and chat me, and I'll respond to that and I'll give a thumbs up. That's great, right? It's good to learn in a community. It's good to learn with other people who find themselves like yourself, like-minded, and then you grow together. If you're able to finish this project, tag me. I'll have my social media links in the description. Go there, grab it, and tag me. And follow the link to download the code base, these diagrams, the architecture. You have it all there. Download it and then learn, practice it, and be perfect at it, right? And this will kickstart a good career in data engineering. Yeah, so we've been able to explain what this diagram is. We've been able to draft out how our table will look in the bronze state, right? In the bronze, when it lands in there, these are the two tables we'll be looking at. And of course, we would also create the CSV and the JSON as the source. We'll push it, or we ingest it into the Databricks volumes and read it into our bronze layer, and then move it into the silver and gold. And finally, the AI engineer can make use of it. Right. So with this architecture that we've explained and we've laid out our tables that are going to be used, the next thing is for us to be able to create the Databricks free edition account, right? So that we can begin learning this architecture. So let's go on to the next stage, where we would create our Databricks free edition account. And the reason why this is good is you can have the account for as long as you want, right? That is a free account from Databricks, and you don't have to pay anything. It is free. You can make use for learning purposes, and you can have it as long as you have it, right? In the other projects that are advanced, you'd have to begin to use a lot of cloud services, but Databricks have made it so easy. It's a unified platform, so you just create a free account and you make use of it for this project. Great. So come with me. I'm going to show you or guide you on how to get your Databricks free edition account on your browser. You just need a Chrome browser or whatever browser you're using, then you find it. Right. Great. So we're going to create our Databricks free edition, and this is going to help you set up. You don't need to change laptop or anything. With your Windows or MacBook, it is a browser in the cloud, right? It's going to operate on your browser, right? And with this project, you don't need to use any terminal or command line commands for this project. We're going to do everything on the cloud or in the cloud Databricks platform, right? The free edition. So let's begin. So if you open your browser, I already have an account, but I'm going to guide you how to do that. If you open your browser, let's go to another place, another tab. Let's open another tab, and then you type Databricks free, right? Free edition. And you will see this, right? So you can see sign up for Databricks trial for free edition, or you see sign up for Databricks free edition. You just click that. And it brings you here. So this is the Databricks free edition, right? This is the Databricks free edition that you need, and it's going to be free for you. So you need to sign in with your Google account, or you want to sign in with an email that you prefer. So you just click it, and let's say you click this, and then you select the accounts you want to use, right? Select the accounts you want to use, and that should get you started. And I already have an account which is here. So when you log in, this is what you should see after creating the Databricks free edition. You just sign in with your Google account or Gmail, right? With your Gmail account, or you want to use your Microsoft account, it's also welcome. It will pick it up, right? So you just create that, and then, so for me, this is how it looks. It will look for you. You come to the home tab, right? This, the Databricks platform. You have your account name, your initial, and then you can use other things, right? So it has some things for data engineering, data ingestion. You can see it here. AI, ML, SQL, the home tabs that you can make use of, and the entire overview, right? So this is what you get when you create a free edition, and that's all you need to begin this project. And as we said, this particular video is going to focus on PySpark. I have another video for this project, but it's going to focus on using SQL to build the entire project as well. But the configuration for both PySpark and SQL is going to be the same. The configuration is the same. Your account creation is the same. You still need to come to Databricks free edition, and you create a free edition account, right? So that's what you're going to do. Great. So now you have your Databricks free edition account ready. Let's go deep into starting the actual project, right? Actual project with this architecture that we have. And with this table, we're going to begin the entire project from the data sources, right? This is where we need to configure. We need some configuration, and with this, you still need to use Python to configure this, right? Python, PySpark, you need to use it to configure this, right? Or Spark SQL, you even bring in some Spark SQL to configure this. The configuration is going to be the same, because that is a preliminary thing that you need to set up the platform or to set up the whole system before you reach the actual Medallion stage. So you have your edition set up, and as I stated, it's going to be the same for PySpark and SQL. I'll have another video of this, but we'll code everything in SQL, right? But this particular one will be in PySpark. Right, great. All right, so this is your Databricks free edition after you've signed up, right? Now you have this, and this is where we're going to create our architecture. Everything is going to happen within for this particular project, it's going to happen within the catalog space, right? Where we create from the architecture, we create the volume in the catalog, we create the bronze, silver, gold also in the catalog, right? By default, you know, this is the default things that you see whenever you create your account, right? All right, to begin with, the first thing that we will do is to create the catalog for the project, the entire project, which will host is the within that catalog. That will be what will host our volume, bronze, silver, and gold, right? So let's do that. Let's create this particular one is going to cut across for PySpark and Spark SQL configuration. So these are this is the configuration stage where we just configuring to create a room to get all this structure in place before we begin implementing everything, right? But we're going to configure everything using the code base, right? Using the code base, right? So let's start. Let's create a catalog where we will have everything. To do that, you come to the plus sign here, right? You click on it and you see create a catalog. You click on that, and with this catalog, we're just going to name it bakery project, bakery underscore project. We use the default storage because it's a free edition. You don't have any external storage created. We use the default storage. All right, create standard type. So it's been created, but let's configure it, right? So this is what you have. This is what you have here, right? Great. So this is what you have, and you just leave it as the default, everything that is here. Okay, next, save, and your catalog is created, successfully created, has been created. Congrats, nice. So we have our catalog now. So this, within this catalog, as I've been saying in my video, Databricks names tables and all that. It's a three namespace of table. You need the catalog, the schema. So this is the catalog that will house the schema. So this is a schema, the default schema. This information schema, as you can see. And within a schema are the tables. Within a schema are the tables. So per this infrastructure, how we're going to do it is we'll have an ingestion schema. Then we'll have a bronze schema. We'll have a silver schema, a gold schema. And within these various schemas, that is what we'll have. For the bronze, we'll have the table, the this orders table, and then a customers table within the schemas that we're going to create, right? Within the schemas that we're going to create, and all those schemas are going to be within the bakery project catalog. Got it? Yeah. So this is how it looks. So you have the catalog, and then the catalog, within the catalog you have the schema, right? Within the catalog you have the schema, and within the schema you have the tables. So that is how it looks. So you can have multiple schemas, right? You can have multiple schemas. So you can have multiple schemas, right? So for example, as we described, so you have the ingestion schema, right? Then you have the bronze schema. Then you have the then you have the you have the silver, and you have the gold, right? gold schema. That is how you can have it, right? Great. So under them, then you can have their various tables. Under them, the schemas, then you can have their various tables. You can have their various tables. You can have multiple tables as you wish in each schema. So this is how it works, right? This is how it works. So you can have multiple tables and a schema as well, just as you have multiple schemas under catalog. So going back, we have our catalog already. Now let's create our schema, our schemas, right? Let's create our various schemas. And with the schemas, you can choose to use the UI, but with this, we're going to use a code to create the schemas because it's recording everything that we want to achieve. So to do that, you go back to your workspace, click on workspace, then you create a folder name, you create a folder. When you go back to your workspace this way, so let me delete this, right? Then you create a folder, you come here, you create a folder, and then you name it bakery project. It's within this folder that we will have all our files that we'll be using to create the project, to code this architecture, right? We will store the files there, right? That's what we're going to do. Now we create this folder, then we create a notebook. We'll be working on a notebook. So let's create a notebook. You can go back and be taking you take a look at everything we create. Let's refresh. Okay. All right, the schema bakery project is here. So let's go, and from the project, let's create this ingestion schema as we have in here, as we design in here, the ingestion schema. Let's create that. And so let's have this notebook, the notebook we created. Let's name it bakery project, right? So the first thing is, let's outline our project in a structured way that when anyone takes it, they would understand exactly what we're doing. And this setup can be used. You need this first configuration for whether it's PySpark or Spark SQL or SQL. You can use the same code to just for the configuration part, right? I'll use the same one in my SQL video. This will be the same structure that will be done there. So let's create a text and give it a name. Configuration, right? So we're configuring it. So this will be the configuration we're going to create. So the first thing we want to do is to create variables. In Python, you create variable, you assign names to a variable or a word. It simply means instead of you calling the word directly, you want to give it something like some nickname that, or you want to assign a different thing to it that is clearer, that when you call it, that is what it represents. So let's create variables. and this should still remain on Python, right? So let's use the serverless resource. So serverless is app. The first variable we want to create is catalog, because we have this catalog name over here. We already created it, and we want to assign the catalog name here because we'll be using it in the code base when we want to refer to the catalog. We don't want to always be typing the catalog name, so on and so forth, right? Or you could make it easier by just using catalog this way. And then the catalog name is what? Bakery project, which is the catalog name you have here, bakery project, right? That's all we have. Great. Now we want to have create a schema, and in this schema, the various schema, as we said, the first schema we need to create is ingestion, right? So ingestion is the first schema. So let's create ingestion schema. So let's say schema equal ingestion. So this is the first schema that we create, and the schema should be found when it's done. It should be within this drop down, right? It should be within this drop down. Great. The next thing we want to do, so this is, of course, this is the schema that we want to create, right? So let's create this schema and see how it looks. To create a schema, we're going to use a Spark SQL code, right? You can use SQL code for this. The same thing but we'll maintain this structure for the SQL side as well, or for the SQL project of this version of this video or this tutorial, because it's pretty much the same setup, just that the code base is a little bit different, right? We're just using SQL to do the other one, and we're using Spark Python or PySpark or Spark SQL in this one. So Spark dot SQL, right? Open bracket. We're going to use an F string, right? This way. F string is a Python code or some Python logic that is telling the code base that I'm going to use a variable outside this code. So in a specific curly bracket way, wherever you see that curly bracket, replace it with the actual variable that is in the project, or that you see assigned here, right? So we're saying this way, as I showed you in writing Spark SQL, you need to always bring your quotation marks, right? So this way we're saying create schema, this SQL code, create schema if not exists, right? So we're telling SQL that if this schema does not exist, create it, right? If it doesn't exist, create it. So create it. Where should it create the schema, and which schema is it going to create? Now this is where the F string that we had here is going to work. So we're going to say now curly bracket this way, and I told you in Databricks, creating a schema or table is 3 namespace. So if you want a schema, then it will be 2 namespace, because it starts with a catalog name, the schema name, and the table name. So if I want to create a schema, I'll eliminate the table namespace, then it will become the catalog name and the schema name. So it would be catalog, this variable that we have here, you can bring it here. So this variable dot schema, this way, right? So this is it. when we run this, we should be able to get the schema created in this project, bakery project. So let's run it and see what happens. If you get an error, we'll debug it, and that is the best way to learn. The error will just show you where you are creating this, where the problem is, and then you should read the error and fix it. So we're creating this schema ingestion in the bakery catalog, and as it's running, it should be able to create us the schema. So it's done, right? It's done, completed. Nice, we didn't have any error. So let's go and check if this schema ingestion was created. Okay, so we just refresh it this way, and there you go. You can see the ingestion schema has been created over here, right? Nice. So we were able to create the ingestion schema, and if we go back to the logic, this is the ingestion schema that we have, right? Now we need to create a volume within the ingestion schema, a volume within the ingestion schema. As I stated, the volume is where the data is going to be or land from the various sources. So your CSV, your JSON are going to land in your volume space, right? With the volume folder that you create, and that would be your ingestion schema. That is within the ingestion schema. That looks like an S3 bucket, right, that you're creating for that. So let's go back and create a new cell and give it, this one would be volume. You're creating the volume, right? So the volume, we also want to give the volume a name. So we will say a variable. So volume equal, we will name the volume landing, right? So that, because that's the first point where the data comes through, the data will just land into that volume, where CSV and JSON will land into the volume, and we'll call it landing. That will be the name we give it. So let's create the volume as well, right? Okay, the same way we create spark.sql bracket f string. As I stated, this an f string, right? String is like words, so you are going to type some words. Wherever you see a curly bracket, replace it with a variable you've assigned to that to replace it with the actual value of the variable you are putting in that curly bracket. So this is a variable, right? Because we've given it a different meaning. This is what it means in this space, right? So we're also going to say create, this time not schema, create volume. If not exists, and the same thing we will do curly bracket. We already know we have a catalog name, so we'll call the catalog in here dot, and we have the schema name, which is ingestion. We've already created it dot, then we have now the volume this way. So if I run this, it should create a volume in this ingestion schema that we have, right? Let's run this. Now this is like error that I've been telling you about. If you have a bag it's good to always have a bug. The explanation is already telling you that syntax error at or near exists, right? So you can see I misspelled it, exists. I left out an S. So if you just bring it and we run it, it should work. Great. Now let's refresh. We should see the volume within it. Yes, so you can see this is the volume. The volume has been created, which is London, and this where it is. This is the volume. So you can see it's a volume, and it will store the content. Here you can store files, CSV, JSON, Excel, Word documents. That's where you can store them in Databricks, right? Great. Now we need to, if we go back to the architecture, we've been able to create the ingestion, we've been able to create a volume. Now if we go to this, we also need a bronze schema and gold schemas. So we would need to create them, because if you look at the architecture, you still need these schemas in order for it to have your full configuration ready, right? Okay, so let's go back and create other. So this will be bronze. This will be the bronze schema, right? So we're going to give the bronze schema a name. Bronze equals bronze, and then we create a schema. Spark dot SQL f string this way, create schema if not exists. The same thing we did catalog, because we know the catalog name is already bakery project. We don't need to type the bakery project anymore. Dot schema. Now you can see we created this. So this schema will be bronze. This way. We want the bronze to be created within this catalog, right? Under this catalog. So we now have ingestion schema. Now we'll be creating the bronze schema in here. So let's run this. Great, it's been done. Let's refresh. Now we have the bronze schema here. And now we need a silver and the gold schema. So let's create a bronze and gold schema. So silver schema, silver equals silver, spark.sql to bracket f string, create schema if not exists. Dots. Now the schema name silver, we bring it here. Create schema if not exists. Okay, great. Now let's run this. It's done. Let's go the gold schema. Gold equal gold, spark dot SQL f string, create schema if not exists, catalog dots gold, and we know gold will be this, right? We run it. Now we created so now we have we've been able to create ingestion schema, the volume, bronze schema, silver, and gold schema. Great. That we've been able to do that. Let's refresh and see how those look. So we have the silver, we have the bronze, the silver, the gold, and the ingestion schema. And we also have the volume, which is the landing. We've been able to lay out the foundation works for the configuration, right? We've been able to configure this architecture, the baseline things that are necessary for that. That is creating the schemas and the volume, right? Now we would have to build the data set and push this data set into the volume, right? So you can see we're making progress, right? We're making good progress. And note, as I stated, this code base, the code used here would be available to you in the comment section. Just go to my description, the description, you'll find a link to the code base and the diagram, the chart, the graph here, and the table here. You have access to the code base as well, right? So we will move on to taking a look at creating the data and all that. So let's go back. For us to create the data and push the CSV into this volume, right, into this volume, the landing page, we need to push the file into this volume, right? And to do that, what we will need is to create a variable for the landing volume, this volume. We can create a variable and always just refer to the variable instead of typing the full path. We can create a variable that will represent the path to the volume, this volume over here. This is the path, right? This is the full path. But instead of always calling the path to push the CSV or PySpark or JSON into the path to store there, we can create a variable and assign it to assign the path to the variable, and always just be calling that variable just as we did here. And instead of typing everything at once, the bakery project, we just call catalog in here, and then Python knows that that is what we are referring to, right? We can do that as well for the path to the volume, right? So we can do that now. So let's create the volume path, right, variable, and let's call it landing underscore path equal, we can equal f string, then we already know to find the volume is the catalog name, so we call catalog. And we know the catalog, we already know where the catalog is. This is the catalog, right? The catalog dot, let's say volume, sorry, let's begin with the proper name, volume volumes. So if you look at it, start with volumes, right? Volumes slash the catalog dot the schema. What's the schema name? The schema name is ingestion. That is the schema name. Dot, then we call the volume which is landing, this way. So we've created a variable for it, right? We've created a variable. So you could choose to just be sure, print out, you can just print, this is a Python stuff, print out f string, right, raw files will land, the raw files will land in, then we can call this path and say to land in here. So if we print this, you see the raw files will land in this is the volume URL. I think another line should be here, because if we go back, you can see stroke, it should match exactly that, right? But ideally it's not this way. Yeah, because if we go slash this, what is happening? So we need to have exactly the same thing. Great. So this is, we've created a variable called landing path, and we've been able to get that this way. Great. Now we can create our JSON. If we go back to the architecture, we have the path to here. Now we need to build the data for the JSON and the CSV and push it into the volume, right? That is a huge data set. We need to build that data and then push it into the volume that we have, right?